You're listening to The Sizzle with DJ J and G Sizzle.
You know who it is, you know what it is. It's The Sizzle in the building, bringing you the heat as we do every Saturday. You know who's in the building. J Sizzle's in the building, G Sizzle's in the building, and this is the hottest talk in the 219. This is the only talk in the 219, and anybody else who's talking is just yabba yabba. That's all we're doing.
I do that all the time, man. I'm a yabba yabba type of fella.
Well, not like yabba yabba, like
a yabba dabba do. Man, look, Fred Flintstone. Nobody yabba dabba and do like Fred Flintstone. Anytime you had to put your feet, my car was almost like a Fred Flintstone mobile. Did I tell you what happened, man? Listen. Okay. You know, my car is great, man. You know, the air conditioner works great when it's cool outside. I can't tell you how. When the air conditioner, it'd be nicer, but when it's hot, my car just gets marginally cool. It's not like...
How do you get marginally?
It's just right before sweat, but it's almost there. You know what I'm talking about, when the big man have on the wrong shirt. You know the sweat getting ready to come through that bad boy. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's my car on 10 all the time.
Well, listen, today is going to be a special day. In fact, I got my bed music. Jay, you're going to have to hit some of that music up under me because I know it's under there. I'm going to play my music because I'm feeling extra spicy right now. Well, not spicy because I didn't wash, but just spicy because...
I thought you were thinking like hot wings or something.
Well, no. I would like some hot wings, but it's a little bit too hot for hot wings. To me, I don't know. Now, maybe, you can get some hot wings, but I don't want any hot wings right now because it's too hot. But you know who it is. You know what it is. Listen, man, let's just start it off like we always do. It's 75 degrees here in the region. It's a little muggy. It's a little hot, but...
A little muggy.
Well...
Man, I'm melting over here. I feel like Frosty the Snowman. You know what? At the end of the movie, when you just start melting, and all you had was a twig and some coal.
You're almost over there like Frosty the Snow, homie. It is almost Frosty the Snow, bro. It is a bad thing, man. But listen, if you have not, make sure that you like, subscribe, and share the Sizzle with someone you love. If you're not sharing our content, then that means you don't love your friends and family. That means that right now you've got to do better in life to find out how you're going to get your people the Sizzle. And all you've got to do is look for us at hashtag Iron Skillet Media 219. You can find all of the content, find all of our videos, find anything that anything that you like, because we got all kinds of stuff. Like we got today, boy, we have a lineup today.
Oh yeah, we do.
We've got an in-studio guest. We got a guest calling on the phone. Yeah. Uh-oh. We got to talk a lot of stuff, man. We're going to talk a lot of Chicago. We're going to talk some serious stuff. We're going to talk some NASCAR. We're going to talk hockey, basketball, law, and it's still time for you, ladies and gentlemen, to go and vote. Make sure that you're voting you can go to Facebook, you can go to Instagram, or you can go to Twitter, and make sure that you're hitting that vote because we're voting right now. It's the Sizzle Summer Session, and this is what we do. We're giving you a summer versus from the Sizzle. So remember today, before we get out of here, we've got to pay off, Jay, and tell the people who wins between Tony versus Mint Condition.
Oh, we already know who wins that one.
No, we don't. The people have to vote, sir. You can't.
I don't get a vote?
Yeah, but that's one.
Look, man. Okay. What? You back in my times, man, when I was riding with the smoked out lenses on my, I couldn't even drive at night, man, because my headlights had the smoked out lenses on it. You know what I'm talking about?
You do this every time we have company. This is what you do. I don't know why you're doing it. Listen, if you have not gone on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, or any of those platforms, make sure you do. And you can also vote by voicemail. That's right. Ooh. Call our voicemail at 219-885-9156. That's 219-885-9156. Leave your voicemail. Leave your comments in the section. Tell us who wins. I'm telling you right now, this battle is not over.
I'm setting up bribes.
What?
Look, man, I got my group already, man. I want to win. I'm that guy.
You can't do that.
If I had orange hair on right now, you know who I...
Wait a minute. We have an attorney in the building. You can't just say you're going to set up a bribe to win. Are you rigging the election?
Allegedly.
Listen, man, you've done a lot. And first of all, before we go any further, are you excited about NASCAR in Chicago?
Man, anything moving fast and turning around corners in a hurry, I'm with it.
Okay. All right. I'm just asking because I know we're going to talk about it later. It's going to come up in the show. So I didn't want you to say that I was not being NASCAR friendly to you.
You know what? Because, see, I'm a racing type of guy. I like NASCAR, F1, all that type of stuff. I'm that guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm Indy Racing League. You know, I'm that guy. I like being out there, but I can't get into none of the vehicles. But I can feel like I'm going fast. You know what, though? They said at this NASCAR race, this is one of the few races that are this tight, a true road circuit with 12 corners on it. They said a lot of these NASCAR guys are not used to racing true road circuits, and so it's going to be pretty interesting. Do you know, here's a guy I did not know. They have been racing on simulators, right, this whole entire time, and they're only going to get about 50 minutes of track time to actually race on the actual track. We don't look. We've been driving the Lakeshore Drive for almost 60 years, and I'm going to tell you what, that NASCAR still scared me. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what they're going to do.
I always drive Lakeshore Drive like I'm a Formula One driver.
You know what, you have to, because you will get run over on Lakeshore Drive.
It is. If you don't know what you're doing, that is not the spot for you. I'm just saying, you always have to watch and make sure that you're. Listen, it's so much going on, man. Jay, we got a lot to talk about. Plus, we got to talk some NBA a little bit, don't we?
Oh, do we? I thought that was over with.
No, it's not over. It just began.
It's over for the Chicago Bulls.
Here we go again.
Already. You know, look, man. Did you hear the rumor?
I'm afraid to even.
They said old number one was coming back home with the dreads.
Yeah, and then he went and signed with the Memphis Grizzlies.
You know, that tells you right there, he is street smarts also.
How do you not sign Derrick Rose? Out of all the people in the world, how do you not sign Derrick Rose?
So now you got the Memphis Grizzlies, and there's another guard over there, the Two-Gun Pete. Is that who he is over there playing for the Memphis Grizzlies?
Listen,
Shogun the Shotgun?
Pistol Pete is doing his thing, and as long as he's doing his thing, man, I can't, not the real Pistol Pete, but Two-Gun
Tappy. He came back. That'd be something I want to know. But look, can you see this backcourt now? Are they going to run them at the same time?
No, they can't.
Ja Morant and the Chosen One?
Wow.
Can you see them running at the same time?
No.
Because now you put Ja at the true two, which he really is. Derrick, slow down Derrick Rose is still nasty. Don't get it twisted now.
But, okay, here's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I can see this happening.
Yeah.
Derrick's going to start feeling himself, right? And all that's going to come back, and he's going to remember, and then Derrick's going to try and go up and poke like he used to, the pre-Ja Morant poke, and he's going to die.
You say he's just going to go up there and leave his knees on the ground? And
He's going to be like, ah! And then, now he's gone. I just want you to know that this could happen.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what the Bulls were trying to avoid.
But I'm going to tell you what, though. I would have liked to see, just for nostalgic sake, but I'm saying a true point guard for the Chicago Bulls that has enough gravitas in that. See, that's a big word. You see, I wrote that word up in there. I'm pretty good.
This is what happens. This is what happens.
But who can get that locker room under control? Who can get Zach LaVine ready to ball when he needs to?
Nobody can do that.
You know, but look, I think, you don't think Derrick Rose could get up at Zach LaVine if he needed to?
I think it would be his city. But, okay, so here's a quick question.
Yeah.
And we're not even supposed to be here, man. We're supposed to be talking some other stuff. But, all right, so if Damian Lillard goes, right, Dame Dollar goes to the Heat.
Yeah.
Is it his team then, or is it Jimmy Butler's team?
Oh, it's Jimmy Butler's team.
Cam, you owe me money. Owe me money, Cam.
Team.
I just wanted you to say it to repeat what I said. No, he bet me.
Oh.
So if you are rolling around near the Experience Barbershop, tell Cam the barber he owes G Sizzle money when I made the statement, and then he had one of his clients really wanted to jump on me, and I felt threatened.
What? Did he all come all the way from the Boston Garden?
Yeah, I thought that
Did he bring a heart for the Tin Man? Oh, I wasn't supposed to say that. I'm sorry.
Man, you're not even, you are being bad, and I just want you to know it. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. This is not. In fact, we were supposed to talk about what are the pros and cons of us being big men in a submarine. That was what we were going to talk about.
Here is the pro on that. We would have never got in there. That's number one. There ain't enough chicken wings that would have lured me in there. That like somebody's bathtub with a top on it. They just went down there. Nobody in their right mind was going to jump. First thing when you pulled up, and you went like, all right, where's the thing at? And it's that trash can right there. I'm sorry, I don't have any trash to throw in it. No, y'all getting in it. And doing what?
Man.
Did you see that little expose they had about that?
I did see it. And, you know, at this point, I don't know how to feel about it, because common sense should tell you at one point that you just hopped in a garbage can and went to the bottom of the ocean.
Well, here's my whole thing, right? All right. I'm telling you, for $12.27, a Netflix subscription, you could have watched the Titanic on there. They had the little thing. They showed you where all the people were playing, how the ship broke apart. You could have got out there and said, Rose, you could have did all that. Why? For what good reason are you going to go down there in that vehicle? It's different now. If this was $2 or $3 million submersible, we all know what one of those look like. We ain't never been on one, but we know we walk up there and go, oh, that looks like about $3 million right there. Mm-hmm. That looked like $37.45. You could have got that back at Home Depot in the for sale center back in the back. Anybody need a submersible? Right back there next to a weed whacker.
Not the weed whacker.
A weed whacker.
Oh, my goodness.
Bro, you wouldn't even stood next to that thing. You wouldn't have gotten that in a pool.
I couldn't get next to it. What was I going to do?
Look, if you and I got up in there, man, it was going straight to the bottom.
Oh, bro, right, if we got in it, there was it was a submergible, and it was not coming back up.
A submergible.
That's a good one. I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing. Listen, so if you don't know, in the building right now, we have a special guest, and we have someone who's going to talk some civic responsibility with us, and we're going to talk about civic responsibility and things as they're moving forward in society. And right now we have with us attorney Michael Tolbert of Tolbert and Tolbert Attorneys at Law Firm here in the region, in the great city of Gary, Indiana. Attorney Tolbert, how are you?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Man, we're doing fine. I appreciate you coming on such a short notice. But
appreciate you having me on.
Man, it's so much we got to talk about. It's so much. And I told you earlier, one of the things is you've got a lot of turmoil going on. You've got a riot in Paris right now. You have turmoil in, it seems like, every police station in America. There is some kind of civil matter that's going on. And then in the wonderful city of Chicago, you have a woman that was arrested, charged with murder, but then charges were dropped.
In a dramatic reversal, Cook County prosecutors dropping murder charges against a Southside mother and son.
Two arrested last week in the deadly shooting of a 32-year-old restaurant patron.
A woman and her teenage son were charged with murder, but those charges were dropped shortly after a video of the incident became public.
Carlisha Hood wipes away tears one day after she was released from Cook County Jail. The first-degree murder charges against her and her 14-year-old son dropped after a fatal shooting here at this West Pullman hot dog stand.
Never in a million years would I have imagined being brutally attacked, beaten, and then arrested.
Hey, get your food!
Over the weekend, this video surfaced on social media showing an encounter between Hood and 32-year-old Jeremy Brown that appears to lead to the attack. We're freezing it at the point where the shots were fired.
We don't want to dilute or diminish that. However, Ms. Hood and her son, we believe were wronged, and we intend to pursue that.
Now Hood is filing a lawsuit against the city and Chicago police alleging false arrest, malicious prosecution, and infliction of emotional distress.
And we won't get into the particulars of the charges. But one of the questions I had for you starting off is, what is the civil responsibility in terms of what happens the city from their standpoint, and then from the person arrested or persons arrested? How does that work? If I'm looking at this civilly, how do we make this work?
Well, it's a very, very complicated problem and issue, and I saw that I believe just a few days ago, Ms. Hood filed a civil lawsuit against the city of Chicago. I believe she claimed false imprisonment is pretty much the main claim. But the police's responsibility essentially is to have probable cause. And if you have probable cause, which is a very low standard, you can, arrest somebody. You can take them, down to the station. And I imagine what will probably be the position of the police department is that, without necessarily knowing all the facts, they're going to probably say that they had at least probable cause to believe that she committed a chargeable offense. Once all the facts were made available to them, they're going to likely say they acted expeditiously and decided to drop those charges. And that is pretty much going to be their defense, their only defense, which is probable cause, and that they had the right to at least take her down to the station and charge her with what they had available to them at the time. I think from the civil side, I don't really see a lot of liability. It could get dicey for Ms. Hood from the victim standpoint, because although the criminal charges were dropped, the standard from criminal to civil is a lot different. The standard for criminal is beyond a reasonable doubt. If you could prove that somebody committed a criminal offense beyond a reasonable doubt, then that conviction occurs. In the civil case, civil context, the standard is much, much lower. The standard is by preponderance of the evidence. That's, as lawyers would say, it's like putting a feather on a scale. And if you tip the scale just a bit, you've proven your case. If you could probably remember, I'm old enough to remember the O.J. Simpson trial.
Oh, yeah.
And you see O.J. Simpson, he was acquitted criminally. The Brown family went and filed a lawsuit against him in the civil courts, and he lost in the civil courts. So two different arenas, two different standards, and a lot of times those standards is a lot lower. In this situation, unlike in the O.J. Simpson trial, probably going to have maybe judgment-proof problems because Ms. Hood is not famous. I'm not stereotyping or anything, so I don't know. She could be a slumdog millionaire. I don't know. She might, but most people are not.
Try to be.
Yeah, right. Most people are not necessarily walking around just, with $30 million or a lot of money in their pockets, and there's probably not going to be insurance coverage to cover that shooting because it was an intentional act. Most insurance policies there's an exclusion for intentional acts. Insurance policies mostly cover accidents. So it's a lot of moving parts, but it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens with the city of Chicago's lawsuit and whether or not there's any type of settlement.
Attorney, I want to just a point I wanted to make. It was interesting how the city sort of worded when they withdrew this charge. They said they didn't meet standards as of literally like right now. Could they go back and revisit this if some information comes forward? Could they go back and recharge her again if more information came forward?
I think that would be very, very difficult to do, particularly from a public perception standpoint. It'd be very difficult to do, and especially with her filing the lawsuit, the civil suit, or at least bringing the civil suit, is going to look like it's retaliation.
Okay.
I imagine the claim that she's probably bringing, I haven't looked at the complaint, but I can only imagine that it's probably brought under Section 1983, which is a constitutional some sort of a constitutional cause of action, although false imprisonment is a state tort is what lawyers typically call it. That can be a state cause of action, but typically when you see lawsuits against the police, it's usually brought under the federal statute section 1983, which allows for you to allege constitutional violations under the Fourth Amendment, due process, all sorts of constitutional trappings that lawyers will plead in their complaint in order to get into federal court, and that's where you get the big dollars, because you get not only your compensatory damages, but you get attorney's fees as well. The lawyers could get paid as well, which we like.
Let me ask this, and Jay, I didn't mean to step on you. I just wanted to.
You always do, though, bro.
I
got your boot marks all over it right now.
I'm sorry.
I got an attorney here right now, sir.
You know what?
Damages.
This is why I'm trying
Section
to
1983.
Yes. Okay. See, you never should have taught him that.
I just saw a whole bunch of law and order right now.
Let me tell you something. You may not see it, but I'm more like Ice-T.
They only give him 2 lines a show, man.
Yeah, but he's been on for 30 years.
That's how you do it, though.
Okay. Yeah. So, with Ms. Hood, let's go back to this Carlisha Hood thing, because I want to know, and I know people want to know. We're saying civil, criminal, 2 different arenas.
Yes.
But from the onset, my question always was, when it came to her, she wasn't the one that actually fired the gun. So now with in the civil suit, and her son being, 14, how does this all work together? He was the one that actually fired the weapon. He was the one who killed the individual, and then now she's arrested. I don't understand. Can you help me to understand?
Well, I imagine most likely what happened was there was some allegations. And again, no one really knows all the facts in terms of what happened. And I try not to speculate in terms of factually what took place, because a lot of times the story is a moving target. But there were a lot of allegations out there that she directed the son back, pretty much told him to shoot. There's so many stories out there in terms of what control she actually had over the son. Yeah. I saw something on social media where they indicated that she actually set the whole thing up. Don't know how true that is. Oh, wow. But I think that's the reason why she was rolled in, on top of the fact that he's a minor. And, typically in certain situations, you can be responsible for the actions of your child. I know in Indiana, typically, if you have minor liability to a parent, there are caps on those damages in terms of what can be recovered. But nonetheless, minors are minors. So just like if a minor was injured, the parent would actually be the person that would have standing to bring the lawsuit on behalf of the minor. Okay. So I imagine that's why the liability seems to be imputed on her, even though she didn't pull the trigger, because he was a minor, and also the allegations that she might have orchestrated the I don't want to say a hit, but orchestrated the shooting on I believe Mr. Brown was his name.
There's so many layers to this where you're asking yourself, how does this work? But let's look at the civil side of it. We'll put aside criminal again. The civil side for the Brown family and for those involved, how do they move forward now? Since she's already put in a suit, now does that give the opportunity for his family, as the victim, did they get to put in a suit against her?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I have to qualify my opinions here today because I don't have an Illinois license.
Correct.
The laws, for the most part, are pretty similar from Indiana to Illinois because we're so close, sister states. But typically, the statute of limitations for a claim for a tort is 2 years. I know in Indiana, if you sue a governmental entity, you have to file what's called a tort claims notice within 6 months before you're able to have the right to even file a lawsuit, which you still have 2 years, but you have to file that pre-notice. He is a private, or she is a private individual, so I imagine he wouldn't have to file a tort claims notice or something akin to that in Illinois. So routinely, he probably would have 2 years, the family would have 2 years to file some sort of a lawsuit. And I would imagine it would be a wrongful death, some sort of a wrongful death lawsuit against Miss Hood. So he could move forward.
Okay. So we're clear that he could move forward. So that's for Mr. Brown, for Jeremy Brown's family, and moving forward that way. How do you, and I'm going to ask you to put on your attorney hat because you're an attorney, but you're not wearing a hat. Let's just say hypothetically.
Sure.
You are her attorney.
Miss Hood's attorney?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
And you say to her, this is what we're going to do. What are we going to do? How do we go about this? How do you even if you're her attorney, how are you directing and guiding this, not just suit, but this whole process? How do you move through this?
Well, I try to speak from experience because we have been our firm that's our bread and butter is litigation, and we're trial lawyers. So we try a lot of cases of all sorts, constitutional cases like Section 1983 cases, personal injury cases. So we've been in the hot seat, and we've had to manage client expectations, and it's almost like Olivia Pope. In a sense, is really managing the client. I've been practicing for over 20 years, and I can remember a time before the internet. I can remember practicing law before Facebook and before social media, and things were.
Hold on now, wait a minute now, sir.
This man here looks like he just got out of law school.
I'm listening to this this baby-faced
Are
man.
you using Cam, What's going on over here?
Hey,
now?
it's Noxzema, baby. It's Noxzema. I'm using that Noxzema. You know, when you exfoliate and you drink a lot of water, then you know your skin tends to glow a little bit.
You know, and that's why you have the pH balance.
That's exactly why I have it. You know,
keeps you going. But so now with this new time where you have social media and you have the internet, YouTube, any link, how has that made your job either easier or more difficult when it comes to litigation as far as that technology is concerned?
Our firm is a very diverse firm in terms of we do a lot of different things. We defend corporations. We've defended police entities in shootings and in situations like what Ms. Hood has filed. But we've also represented people like Ms. Hood. So the challenge is different. You know, I think when you're dealing with the business or you're dealing with like a police department, they tend to understand the process because they've been through it. So we don't necessarily have to handhold as much with companies or police departments, but with a person like Ms. Hood, a lot of times that's their first time ever being involved in a lawsuit. So the first thing we have to tell them in this new social media age is stay off the internet.
Yeah.
Don't post, don't tweet, don't Instagram, don't Snapchat, because all of that is basically memorialized evidence. So whatever you say, it could be used as an exhibit. That's exactly what I tell my clients. Anything you say could be used as an exhibit. So your original question was, what would I do? How would I manage Ms. Hood? My expectations of her would be that basically I tell my clients, we're relatives now. And not only are we relatives, but I'm the only relative that you should talk to, at least about this.
Yeah.
So you can't talk to anybody else. Everything shuts down. And any communication that they have has to flow through us. If somebody wants to talk about the situation or the case, want to take a statement, we don't let our clients give statements before a lawsuit is filed. The only time you're talking to them is at a deposition. So it's just making sure that they're protected, making sure they don't do anything to compromise their case. And more importantly, making sure that in situations where there's an injury, or like I saw the press conference with Ms. Hood, she was claiming emotional distress. So our big thing is to make sure that they get the help they need, because it's not always about dollars and cents. Sometimes these shootings or emotional injuries, people need to get that care and get the care you need quickly, and we make sure that they get that.
Now, is there a way that you quantify people when they come to you with certain situations? Because we know there's a dollar amount costing you this. I mean, you got to file fees.
Yes.
There's people that need to go out and do investigations for you. I mean, I have watched some CSI. I do know there's some stuff that goes on out there. So how is there a way that you quantify a case? Do you look at this to say, from the beginning, is this something that's winnable, or how does that process go? Because I think a lot of people think they can just come with almost anything and go get. I'm gonna get a lawyer. Are you really? Well, a lot of people don't have enough money to get through the week. And we know you have to pay a lawyer. How do we go? How does a person go about that? How do lawyers quantify that?
Well, that's a $1 million question, literally, in terms of how you value a case.
Yeah.
The system that I use is I call it the casino system, the jackpot system.
Okay.
So when you go to the casino, in order for you to hit a jackpot, you have to have 3 cherries or 3 bananas or whatever. That's how you hit a jackpot on the slots. So cases are the same way. In order for you to hit a jackpot in a case, you got to have the first banana or the first cherry, wherever you want to start off with. You can't be at fault. You can't be responsible.
Okay.
So in a situation with Ms. Hood and Mr. Brown, he has a bad case.
Yeah.
Because he's beating on a lady.
Right.
So he's at fault and probably was the proximate cause of the shooting.
Right. Of this.
So even though it's a bad ending, a jury probably would not award him anything because he's primarily responsible for the incident.
Okay.
But, okay, that's the first analysis. Are you at fault? Are you responsible for your own injuries? That's the first. Okay, if we have that, great. Man, just think about the casino slots. Visualize it. Bam. Okay, we got the first cherry, we got the first banana.
Right.
Now we move on to the next wheel. Okay, are you hurt? People come to us all the time. Mr. Tolbert, I almost died. Well, you didn't die.
Right.
Or I almost got hurt. Well, you're not hurt.
Where's your extended hospital stay?
Yeah. Where are the medical bills?
Yeah.
Where's the limb off? Where are the injuries? And the value of the case coincides with the gravity of the injury.
Yeah.
The less the injury, fingernail cut, bruise, juries tend to not award a lot of money.
Okay.
You lose a limb, you die, something to that effect. That's big money.
Yeah.
And juries will give you a lot of money for that. But needless to say, whatever the damage is, if you have it, bam, second cherry. So now we're in the last wheel. Man, okay, we might have a jackpot.
Right.
That last wheel is, do they like you or do I like you? That really drives the case, or drives any type of a case, because
you got to convince 12 people or a judge that this happened and you should be rewarded or awarded for the damages that you received, some way, shape, or form.
People give money to people they like.
Wow. Okay.
That's the reality of it. So I've had cases where people have had the first cherry, the second cherry, and they write the jackpot, but they were jerks, and the jury didn't like them.
Okay.
And didn't give them any money, goose egg. So that's how we value our cases.
Okay.
If you have all of those factors, it's a good case for us. Like, you're not at fault, bad injuries, bad damages, and you come from a good family, or the jury will like you, great. In the Hood situation, he's going to have trouble if he filed a civil suit, because he fails the first prong because he's possibly at fault.
Yeah.
He satisfies the second prong because he's dead.
Yeah.
That's a bad injury, bad or death. He fails the third prong because no jury is going to like the fact that he's beating on a woman.
Right, and they showed it on TV.
Oh, yeah, so he's done. No jackpot.
When we talk about mental distress,
yes,
and that was something we talked about at the second cherry, how has that changed with the views of mental health and mental wellness now versus 20 years ago when you started practice? Is there more of an acceptance of mental health or mental anguish when making decisions by the court, by the judge, by juries? How does that play into it at this point in time?
Yeah, I think you really said it best. I think there has been a change, and with the science and with treatment, we are a lot more educated about mental health, particularly in our community. What we found in minority areas, when we have minority clients, it's really hard to encourage people of color to get the emotional treatment that they need. And we try to explain to them that if you have a lawsuit, or if you have a situation where you have emotional damage, you have to prove that. So you have to go to a mental health facility, or you have to get counseling, because you standing up in front of a jury and just saying, hey, I have emotional distress or mental, some sort of restriction on my mental capacity, that typically is not going to fly. And I would say 20 years ago was a lot harder, particularly in our community. You go to somewhere like that, you're crazy. That's just the way it was.
Yeah.
But now I think it's a more accepting scenario, and the resources are out there now. So I don't think you still have a little bit of reluctance, but not as much reluctance as you had maybe 20 years ago, which is a good thing, I think.
Well, Jay, let's go ahead. We don't want to hold our caller too long, and
I'm gonna bring him on the air. Hello, caller, you're on the air. It's not me.
Hello, this is Frank.
Hey, Frank, how you doing?
Hey, Frank, how are you?
Hey, Frank, I'm good, buddy. Hey, we'll be a few minutes. We're still in a segment. I'll be right back with you. Okay, buddy, hang in there.
Take your time.
All right.
Frank wanted to get in on the conversation too.
You know what? I love guests when they're on time and early.
Oh my goodness, man! When you're on time and early, you're a special kind of person. You're a special kind of person. But
he's ready to talk to Blackhawks. That's what it is.
No, we're not gonna. We're talking mental distress right now.
Absolutely.
And I feel distressed. But let me ask you this. With where we stand now, because we are a quite litigious society.
Ooh, you pick that word out.
Watch yourself. You better watch what I do when I get good water in me. So because all of this now is where everyone wants to sue. Everyone, oh, you hit my car, I'm going to sue you. Oh, you talked wrong to me, I'm going to sue you. I actually was reading an article about an athlete who was with a young lady, and they broke up. And she said she should get half of his, I don't even say if it's his estate. She gets half his money because they were together long enough and he didn't marry her.
But they hooked him with the hook and crook and tricky trick move on it. They said, hey, we're going to go out of town and do some things. The next thing you know, she tried to get back in the house and he said, nope.
and now you're wondering, how defined are these things when we talk about civic responsibility, and what is really the goal now of the lawsuits that are being filed? Are we saying that we're going to try and get every little dollar we can, or are we actually saying that these suits are helping for a bigger cause to help us as a society as a whole? Are we learning something from these suits? So now I'm at the point now where, are we just suing? Is everybody just suing to sue? Is that's what we do now? We just sue to sue. And how do we? I'm trying to see where all these people are getting this money from.
My question is this, though, right? We bring forth the lawsuit, and we know that the defendant has to defend themselves, right? And also that we find out that the person who brought forth the lawsuit really just made something up. Is there? I know there's some remedies there for the person who's been wronged, maybe libel or something like that. But I also think that those penalties should be tougher, because I think some people just bring lawsuits up. They just throwing stuff up and see if it's going to stick up against the wall. And you have some lawyers out here who will just file that lawsuit, hoping that that person is going to settle, possibly because they don't want to get their name out, because they don't want this bad press to go out, because maybe it's going to hurt their image and likeness, and future money's coming in. What do you think about that type of situation? You think people are just now suing for the sake of suing right now, or you just think this is just they're more knowledgeable and they can sue, and so they do so?
Well, I would say, just as a lawyer and as an officer of the court, I would like to think that I believe in open access to the courts.
Okay.
I believe that everyone has a constitutional right to the court and to have their day in court. I do understand that there are a lot of cases, I shouldn't say a lot, but there are a small segment of the population, or a small percentage of cases, that might borderline on the frivolous. But I would like to think, as an officer of the court, that most of the cases that are brought have some level of merit. And we have rules in place. In Indiana, it's called Rule 11, that requires that lawyers screen their cases to make sure that they are not frivolous. So when they sign off on a complaint or on a lawsuit, then that is the lawyer's basically affirmation or certification that he's looked at the case, he's investigated it, and that he's found that it's not a frivolous lawsuit. And to your point about what are the remedies and how do you guard against it, in some situations, I know particularly in Indiana, there's a frivolous law statute that allows that if there's a determination that a lawsuit was brought without grounds or that was frivolous, then you can ask that the court assess fees, a reimbursement of the fees and the costs that were expended in that lawsuit. And I can just tell you, just for me practicing for over 20 years, I have never seen that statute enacted.
Wow.
Which is, I would say, is a good thing. Now, I have been involved in some cases where I'm like, man, that case was a little shaky, but the frivolous standard is so low. And if a case is not worth is what I think it should be worth, and then I wouldn't have taken it, doesn't necessarily mean it's frivolous. It just means that maybe it's a small claims case and it shouldn't be clogging up the court's docket, Lake Superior Court or Lake Circuit Court in our area. And maybe you shouldn't have taken that. Maybe that should have just gone the small claims route, but that doesn't necessarily make it frivolous. And I would say my last point is, in a lot of states in Indiana, we have what's called the American Rule, which means that you're responsible for your own attorney's fees. So if I lose, I pay my fees. If the other person loses, they pay their fees, but no one has to pay the other person's fees. There's no American rule in certain places. I think like Texas, they don't believe in the American rule. they believe in what you gentlemen believe in, which is that if you file a lawsuit and it's frivolous or you don't prevail, then you have to pay the other person's fees.
Okay.
And in those states, that really makes it real, because all these, you're not going to file anything if it's weak or if it's frivolous, because you might have to pay attorney's fees. Unfortunately, in Indiana, we don't have that rule because our legislature believes that would pretty much affect people's ability and open access to the courts, because people will probably sue less if they know that they could be responsible for attorney's fees at the end.
See, in my YouTube law degree, we didn't cover that part, But this is the type of information that you get right here on the Sizzle. And a lot of people don't know that. They think, they don't understand how the legal process goes, and why I'm so glad that you came on to talk about this.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it opens up my eyes to a lot of things. A lot of people do not really talk to lawyers or listen to a lawyer unless something really bad has happened. And the mere fact you're giving them some information, this is fantastic. I mean, I now have about 4 lawsuits I can't file now.
There are some lawsuits I'd like to file. Can you do patent lawsuits? Okay. So there's a company, and they had this amazing drink, and they took it away, and I want it back. And so can I sue them?
So they had a drink that they no longer sell.
That's right. And there was no reason why they took it off. They just took it off, and now I am without this drink, and I think it has done mental damage.
Probably not.
Okay. See, these are the questions, because
there's no duty to keep the drink on the market.
See, but he wanted to sign, but they brought out new Coke back in the that new Coke when they did Coke. Yeah, he was ready then.
You failed on the first wheel.
That was the first.
That was the first wheel.
So I didn't get a cherry on that.
I'm gonna get you a T-shirt. You failed. On the first wheel. We all know what that means. That's gonna be our inside joke right there.
I know what it means, but the other people don't know what it means.
That's right.
But before we let you get out of here, because I know, and again, we appreciate you coming in.
Oh, thank you for having me.
When you talk about law, and we talk about civil rights and civil law, how does that work for the layman who doesn't understand the law? How do they even go about understanding what their civil rights are? Where do they find that information? How do they learn what my civil rights are? What am I actually, what's available to me, and what can I do if I've been wronged or hurt?
I always encourage people to go seek out a lawyer. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do a shameless plug for Tolbert & Tolbert, because we're right here in Gary, Indiana. And one of the reasons why we opened up our firm here in Gary, Indiana is primarily, first, we're from here. Mm-hmm. So my wife and I always wanted to have a law firm where we grew up.
Yeah.
And the second part of it was we wanted to be able, because there was such a lack of knowledge in our communities a lot of times, we didn't necessarily have access to lawyers right away. So we put our office right in the smack dab in the middle of the hood. We're right in Midtown, right off of Broadway. So when people do have problems or questions, they can come to us. You no longer have to go south and go out to Maryville or go to Crown Point, because the transportation needs might make it difficult for you to get out there, and you just are struggling without that knowledge. I had a client walk to our office not too long ago. So there's no need for us to kind of wander in the wilderness anymore, particularly in Gary, because you have a law firm right here that can answer whatever question that you need, particularly in the civil arena. We don't do criminal work. We don't do family law. But, civil rights, we can answer those questions just like I just answered them now for you.
Yeah. Personal
injury, we can answer that. And I always have to say, part of what we try to do as well, my wife and I, is we try to take away the negative stigma of lawyers. It's like officer friendly. You gentlemen remember officer friendly, right? Yeah. And we like to say that we're kind of like the lawyer friendly, because we try to have positive connections and interactions with people in our community, and have those interactions outside of when something bad happens, because lawyers do so much outside of just getting you out of trouble. We do patents. We don't do patents, but they're lawyers that draft contracts, that help you start businesses. So it's not always like, oh, somebody's dead or somebody's hurt. Lawyers serve a function a lot of times that's positive. They help.
And accessibility, with your shingle hanging right here, where, like you said, within walking distance. That's an important thing, because I think a lot of times people don't seek out the legal system because they feel like there's not going to be accessible to them.
Right.
They're not going to be received in a proper manner. And I think when you have someone that's right there from your community and saying, hey, look, you come see us, we can talk, we can figure out, let's work this thing out together. I think that's really a wonderful thing that you did, because here's the thing about it. You could have went anywhere else that you wanted to. And you came right here and stayed right here in Gary, and that's commendable. Because you see a lot of people who get out up on the other side, right, and they don't necessarily come back to their roots and plant again and grow. And I just really think that's commendable to you and your wife for doing that, number one, for providing these services right here. And if anybody's looking for a lawyer, because I'm calling you, you know what I'm saying? I know where to go now.
Well, it's not going to be a shameless plug, because you're going to plug if people need to get in contact with you. They have to find you. How do they go about finding you? Where do they go? Give all the people the information just so they know how to get in contact with Tolbert and Tolbert.
Well, thank you. You can find us at 1085 Broadway. That's Suite B. I always tell people we're in the old Post-Tribune building right at 11th and Broadway. It used to be a Popeye's Chicken right across the way, but it's now abandoned. But we're right across from the old Popeye's Chicken and the old Post-Tribune building. You can find us on Facebook at Tolbert and Tolbert, and also on Twitter. You can find us at Tolbert Law is the handle, as well as Tolbert Law on Instagram, and we're also on LinkedIn as well. Phone number is 219-427-0094. Website is www.tolbertlegal.com. Visit the website, shows you everything that we do, and give us a call. We'd be more than happy to help you out, whatever your legal needs are.
Would you give that number one more time?
Sure.
So that our listeners can get it. Make sure, ladies and gentlemen, you have your pen and paper ready. Call it on your phone. Just call it right now, and then you're like, I don't know who this number is. You can save it in your phone.
It's 219-427-0094.
Now, let me say this. As I read over, and when I look at the mission of Tolbert and Tolbert, not only to honor God, but to render compassionate services.
Litigation services to businesses, organizations, and individuals.
I just wanted to see if you knew your own.
Of course I do. I know my mission.
You knew your mission, sir. So
that was a test.
Yes,
it felt like I was online again.
Well, every once in a while you have to get in the cut, but that's okay. It's all right. It's all love here. But I just want people to know that there is affordable legal care. There is someone who cares about you. There's affordable legal services, because we hear so many times, especially with young people, they get in trouble with the law. They get in trouble with police officers, actions, sometimes just plain not thinking. They do things and you question yourself as to, especially parents, you're like, that can't be my child. I don't know who stole this child and put him here, but this child isn't mine. But the key is when you have those parents and you have people who said, I need help, not just criminal, I need help. And it's so hard to find somebody who can help. So that's why that's why we reached out, to make sure this is not just about the hood situation. This is about everything that goes on. People don't know. And our people have perished for lack of knowledge because they don't know where to get help. I can guarantee you somebody this week is going to say, or in the coming week, I had no idea that your law office was located right there.
Well, I'm glad, and I appreciate what you gentlemen do in terms of keeping the 219 updated on current events and bringing people like me in to talk. And I just really applaud everything that you do. And we give all the praise and honor to God. I'm glad you mentioned our mission statement, because that is near and dear to our heart. And we know that without God, there's nothing that we could do and nothing would be possible. So we give him all the praise.
And I also have to give a big shout out to our girl, Chelsea Whittington, because she's going to swear that she made all this possible.
Well, because she did.
Well, I'm not saying she didn't. I'm just saying.
We love Chelsea.
I got to give a shout out. But when we're talking about getting information out, being arbiters of information in the 219, not just in Gary, but in the region itself, but particularly in Gary.
Yeah.
Because now it made me think, one of my civil suits is that I want to file a lawsuit against whoever closed Popeyes because I need that Popeyes open. Now,
Hey, I want to join that suit too.
Yes, I'm going to file a suit against. I want the Popeyes open.
We might have 3 chickens instead of 3 cherries on
There you go.
on the thing.
Because I need my fried apple pie with cinnamon sugar. You know what I'm saying?
I just need I would have said a 10-piece, but now I can get just a 2-piece with a regular red beans and rice.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, well, that shows you I'm hungry. Well, you know what? I want to thank you again for coming in. Remind everyone of your number again so they can call you.
Tolbert Tolbert, LLC, attorneys at law. The number is 219-427-0094, and we're on all social media platforms. Just search Tolbert Tolbert, and you'll find us.
Well, I want to thank you again for giving us your time this evening. I know it's hot, it's humid.
That's all right. That's all right.
We had to get it in for the people, and we want to make sure that everybody has this information with them. So you know who this is. You know what it is. It's the Sizzle here on WGVE. Listen, you're listening to us, and remember, there's still time to vote. You can get in right now and tell us who is going to win this Sizzle Summer Jamboree, because it's going to be on. And when we come back,
yes, sir,
we're going to talk
the myth, the
myth, the legend.
The legend.
We're going to talk to the tank.
Yes, we are.
We're going to talk to the tank, and we're going to get some information going, and we're going to tell some people why the number 1 overall pick is a good thing for the Blackhawks and maybe for Chicago.
We'll see.
We'll see. But you're listening to the Sizzle here on WGVE 88.7 FM.
You're listening to The Sizzle on Iron Skillet Radio and Iron Skillet Television.